this video is pretty much in response to some stuff I've been seeing on Tumblr dealing with the Walt Disney fandom. And this video is kind of like venting my frustrations about some of the comments I've heard, and also discussing some of the things I think that are important when talking about Disney and the topic of nostalgia, and how we take a company such a long history of making children happy and recognize that despite it making good movies, it should still be held to a responsibility of promoting diversity and equality. So there was a comment about feminism and Disney movies, and I would like to just state that you can be a feminist and enjoy Disney movies. I mean, if we're going to say that every movie that isn't feminist or racially progressive is not good, we will only have a handful of movies. Well, that's an exaggeration, but we wouldn't have that many movies to choose from that would fill those qualifications. There are genres that have always had a history of being, sexist, racist, and biased. And looking back on those products, we can excuse them due to the time period. It's not an excuse in saying that they were right, but excuse it in the fact that that was how it was back then, and that was the norm. And that's why, if you look back at some of the older movies like Snow White and Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty, while they're not as progressive as some of us may wish they would have been, not only is their, source material not very progressive, but the time period in which they were made wasn't one where, our modern idea of feminism would have been influenced there. At least not in a really strong way. So, on that degree, I sort of excuse and understand why there are feminists that will look back on Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, and Cinderella and be like, these need to be improved in certain ways. They would show a different sort of image. But at the same time, that time period can excuse them. With the modern princesses, for the most part, that excuse does not, lay weight. There is no excuse for certain things that happen in these other new movies. And I guess my big disclaimer for this entire video is that I'm not attacking Disney. I'm not saying that these Disney movies aren't enjoyable or entertaining, or that you liking them from your childhood was wrong. No. But we're not children anymore. These movies, many of them that came out in the Renaissance period, came out when we were children. And we're adults now. And we should be able to, as adults, look back on a fandom that we enjoyed, on a movie we enjoyed, and see with adult eyes what it's saying. And by doing that, we're not ruining our childhoods. We are seeing our childhoods through a different lens. And it's important, I feel, as an adult to look back on your childhood and say, is this still good when I'm an adult? Does the message that I got from it as a kid still reflect as an adult? And even if as a child we didn't get a certain message or get a certain image from that, as adults, is it important to recognize that image? And I think it is, because these movies are written by adults. And this is mostly Disney princess movies. Disney princess movies are almost the equivalent of romantic comedies. They're a very homogeneous sort of genre. It is all about the female character who's kind of either, an underdog or an outcast who eventually triumphs in some way, and she gets married or is implied to be married, with the exception of Pocahontas being the only one where she doesn't end up married or implied to be married to a love interest in her first original movie. If you put the sequel in, well, that's null and void. The argument that I feel a lot of people get up in arms about is dealing with the Little Mermaid. Snow White, Cinderella, and Sleeping Beauty are kind of universally seen as not being that progressive of movies, and I understand why. As a feminist, I think that while they're not the most progressive female characters of Disney princess lineup, they also show a different sort of strength that can be debated. Whether the characters are interesting or not is a completely different topic, but in terms of being feminist characters, of course they're not, and it's very hard to define a character as being feminist in that sort of sense, considering the time period which they were in. But it doesn't make them bad female characters. I don't think anyone here is trying to say that Disney female characters are horrible, but I think it's important to look at the messages that are being promoted in these movies. And The Little Mermaid is one that gets a lot of flack, and is kind of a favorite darling of, my generation and a little bit older than myself. And to me, what kind of irritates me is the complete lack of trying to get a subjective thought of what's going on and what's being told in this movie. And the fact of the matter is, it's not completely just Little Mermaid. I mean, even take a movie like Beauty and the Beast, which I adore, you know, there's still that, what are they trying to say in this movie? The Disney Princess movies are not really spreading a message about anything, except that if you're cute and you're happy and you keep a positive attitude, things will work out. And for the most part, you have these female characters, and I'm talking about from Little Mermaid on, excluding Mulan and Tiana, but we'll put, you know, Pocahontas, a little bit of Jasmine, Ariel, and Belle in this mix. They start out their movies as these young, you know, bright women who are kind of don't really fit the mold of what their society thinks that they should be. For some reason, you know, only in two of them is it really defined why that kind of is. One, we get sort of a finicky answer, and in the other one, we get no, you know, reasoning for her being an outcast or wanting something in general. And they sing about wanting something more. They want something more. What is this more? What is this thing that these women want so badly? You know, you look at the Little Mermaid. You think of Ariel Chopaz, like she wants to go on land. She wants to do all these adventures. Why? Not even as a woman, as a character. What is her motivation for being so wanting to go up on land? Simple curiosity? You know, simple curiosity is fine, but we don't give up, you know, our entire families and, you know, our identity for curiosity. Just that kind of curiosity. But at 16. Even Belle, you know, she talks about how she wants all this adventure in the great wide somewhere. And yet she's satisfied at the end of the movie by just, you know, being with the beast. I mean, there's no implication that she's going to be going out and having an adventure somewhere. We could always say that she does. But in the movie itself, where do we get that? Where do we see a kind of satisfying conclusion to these women's lives? If they wanted adventure, mainly, you know, Belle and Ariel, they want this adventure, they want this great, great thing happening to them. At the end, nothing happens. They get married. You know, with Ariel, if we take the sequel into consideration, we know that she gets, you know, she has a melody, and she just stays as kind of a queen. But where's her adventure? Where's her life? Where's the excitement that she's supposed to live? That's not important in the movie. And it's not treated as important. And the same thing with Belle, you know. While I love her, I definitely do. And I was just thinking to myself, many people, we regard Belle as the intellectual princess out of the group because we see her, you know, reading. And I watched the movie again recently just to, like, see what I was going to talk, just to, like, get my mindset for this vlog. And the only two books we know she reads is, one is Jack and the Beanstalk, and the other one is some sort of romantic story. So really, the intelligence that we put onto Belle could legitimately just be that she likes to read, not really the quality of the book she's reading. I mean, she's reading Jack and the Beanstalk and some sort of, like, you know, probably a bodice romance novel equivalent of Disney movies. She wants so much from her life, but the movie doesn't give her anything. I mean, she spends most of her time in the castle, in some sort of, like, magical environment, but what about that adventure she wanted? Is that supposed to just be her adventure, just that in the palace? That's supposed to be it. We don't even see her interact that much except in the beginning. So why is she satisfied at the end? She talks about she doesn't want to be some guy's wife, some little wife, yet she's completely just, you know, she's someone's wife. And we don't, in the sequels or whatever, we never see anything that shows that, oh, Belle went out, she explored, she did things. Was she just satisfied just staying in that palace and having her whole library of books? Was that just what she wanted in life? You know, and in the case of Little Mermaid, we have if I break down the story, take out the whole little Disney elements of it and the magic, we basically have a 16-year-old girl. 16-year-old class, maybe we'll call her an upper class girl, who is tired of doing what her father says, constantly disobeys her father, repeatedly, blatantly, to the point where she forgets important social events in order to disobey him. And she does this repeatedly. Then she meets a guy who she kind of thinks is cute. She kind of likes him. She's already, like, scribbling her notebook, their names on her notebook pad or whatever. And her father finds out only is she dating this boy who he has no idea who he is. They come from a completely different background, completely different species, but we'll cut that out because we're not talking about that. But she meets this boy, talks about how she loves him, she wants to be with him, etc. And he finds out where she's been hiding everything he's been telling her not to do. She blatantly disobeyed him this entire movie. Constantly. Has an entire trove full of things to prove that she has disobeyed him countless times. Where is her growth? She goes to the hissy fit. She sells her voice. She meets Eric, and they have happily ever after. Where is her character arc? Just from a story worth, where is her growth as a human being? Where is her growth from being that 16-year-old impulsive girl to being someone with common sense? That, I think, is what I think is kind of, weird when I think about, where is her common sense? And if you want to say, as a fan of the movie, or as a fan of Ariel, that because she's 16, she's young, we've all felt that way. But when we felt that way, we grew out of it, several years later, and look back at ourselves as teenagers, and we're like, we were stupid. There's none of that for Ariel. Within 3 days, she meets a guy, has no conversation with him at all. They spend literally one whole day together because the first day she just arrives there. The third day she doesn't get to be with him at all. She spends literally 1 day and 15 minutes with the man she's about to marry. And it wouldn't be as big of a deal, I feel, if it hadn't been set up that she has no motivation for this marriage, other than the fact that she is tired of living with her father. And she's 16. Of course she is. We're all that way as teenagers. She doesn't grow. It's not like Cinderella or Snow White or Sleeping Beauty, where something actually comes of a positive reaction from this early marriage. This is a 1989 Disney movie. Why is a 16-year-old lead doing all of this? Why is, all of her adventure and goals and stuff that we saw in, Part of Your World just thrown into marriage at the end? And it's because that's what it's really about. You look at romantic comedies, it's the same thing. The type A person who has all these weird dreams and whatever has to take it down so she can be with somebody else. It's the same sort of story, with the exceptions of being, Mulan and Tiana, where Mulan has a goal to save her father, and at the end, she gets a relationship with Shang, which is kind of tagged on at the end. And while I have no problem with the relationship as a whole, just thinking about it from a subjective point of view, why does that have to even exist, It's not a really romantic movie. The relationship between her and Shang was already kind of fine. At the end, it has to be this whole kind of thing. Sequel, they get married, of course. Tiana, she has her goals. She's kind of stubborn about it. In the end, she gets married, just like everybody else. And it's not to knock marriage or not the idea of that marriage isn't a positive thing, because marriage is fine, but there is something to be said when every single one of these movies, with the exception of Pocahontas, who gets the least amount of merchandising from the Disney franchise in general, is the only princess to not have a happy ending with marriage in her movie, but then she just gets it again in her sequel. And these female characters aren't dynamic in the sense that they want something that has meaning, so that they have real goals or dreams. Their dreams are so abstract, so that we as the audience can put ourselves into their dreams and just root for them because they're avatars for us as girls. But yet, we're not supposed to have equal avatars for everybody else. I mean, it doesn't seem... there were comments I would read on, confessionals talking about, we shouldn't have princes of all different ethnicities. It's not Disney's responsibility to have that, or to have them feel good about themselves, or to have lesbians or other homosexuals, or even an asexual princess who doesn't really have a romantic relationship. That's not what people want to see. And that, to me, is just idiotic. Even if you want to have this kind of idea of having this happy ending, then do it with other diverse groups. At least have some diversity in some way. And what I think is kind of interesting about the Disney Princess franchise is that probably the 2 or 3 most interesting female characters as a whole in Disney don't come from the Disney Princess franchise. I mean, if I had to pick 3 of the most dynamic female characters in Disney's marketing of the human arc, it would be Meg from Hercules, Esmeralda from Hunchback of Notre Dame, and maybe give or take Jane, or Wendy from Peter Pan. Wendy actually goes through a character arc in her entire story. She goes up as this kid who wants to stay young forever, just be a kid for the rest of her life. At the end, she realizes, I have to grow up, that she has to find her own place in the world. You got Esmeralda, who actually stands for something more than just herself. Her song isn't about her dreams or what she wants for herself. It's about her wanting, it's her praying for other people, for her saying, you know, there's so much injustice in the world, I feel so helpless, I wish I could give more. Megara is probably the most complex female character Disney's ever had. I mean, she's an anti-villain for most of the movie. She's not some kind of like, oh, I've only been with one guy my entire life. She has a love interest before. She's been heartbroken. She's not, you know, all wide-eyed about love. You know, she has a complicated relationship with, you know, her love interest because she betrays him, and she sold her soul. You know, she has basically been that girl. She's been that Disney princess girl, and she's kind of like an adult in my mind. That's how she's an adult princess. She's a queen. And yet her character cannot be a princess. You know, the Disney Princess franchise is selling one certain way to people, and that's flawed. And if you want to take the whole, oh, what about the guy characters? Because I know people argue about, like, with Ariel, like, what about Hercules? What about Aladdin? Well, in the case of Hercules and Aladdin are probably, like, the perfect two examples of, like, why this Disney princess stuff is like, kind of their own thing. Because if you look at Hercules, him giving up his godhood for Meg really doesn't hold the same sort of weight as Ariel giving up her being a mermaid for Eric. Mainly because Hercules was never, you know, he was taken from his family when he was young, but he was growing up his entire life being literally a blight on his society. He destroyed his town, he was ashamed to his father, and he finds out, you know, I'm not even my own parent's child. He's like Superman in that sense. And his entire movie is him growing up and realizing that he wanted to just do good things so people would like him. He wanted to be accepted. And he didn't do things because he thought they were right or because they were the right thing to do. He did them because he wanted to get gratification. Him choosing Meg is not him choosing a woman over his godhood. It's him realizing that there are more important things in life than just wanting people to adore you. From Go the Distance, he's gone from that song to being a guy who's like, I have what I want the most. I know what's important in my life, and this is it. You know, it's being a hero is not about me being popular. It's about me helping people and doing things from the heart. That's not anything in a Disney princess movie. You get Aladdin, who his whole reason in this movie, his I Want song is about him getting out from poverty. Him getting up from dirt poor to being someone who won't get picked on, who won't get shit on, who people won't look at him and say he's worthless. Because that's what people think he is. And him being with Jasmine is just kind of the icing on the cake. He meets a girl he likes. She just happens to be a princess. I get to kill two birds with one stone. With the Disney princesses, they don't grow up as characters because it's already implied that they're perfect to begin with. So there is no room for them to grow. They just stay stagnant the entire movie. And even their roles in the movie, even if they're the lead, don't really grow. They just spend the entire... I think the exception would probably be Tiana, who grows up. But her sacrifice is just to be like, you know, it's basically saying that her way of living was wrong and that now she knows how to live. I think Tiana's probably the best example of Disney trying to realize, you know, maybe we should make these women focus on something more than just, you know, this abstract dream. Have them actually have a real goal in mind, like Aladdin, like Hercules. But except that her goal was treated as being, you know, a vice because she was so obsessed with it. And to me, that's fascinating. Like, you have these Disney male movies, and you have these, you know, non-Disney characters who are so, you know, dynamic. But the princesses who are so loved and adored don't really grow, with the exception of maybe one or two. They don't grow into anything. They stay exactly the same, and they all could be interchangeable, except if you change your character design. When it comes down to it. I mean, I love Belle. I mean, I love Belle, and I love the Disney Princess franchise. Don't get me wrong. I do love Disney and Disney Princess franchise. But I can't deny what it is, what it's selling, what it promotes. And that is the only thing that they promote with that franchise. There's no diversity in it. At all. If you look at, there are 10 Disney princesses. The only minorities in it are Jasmine, Pocahontas, Mulan, and Tiana. Of that, only Jasmine and Tiana are really on a majority of merchandise. Before Tiana came along, it was mainly just Jasmine. Pocahontas is hardly on anything. Mulan gets it, but even though she's supposed to be the tomboy of the group, she's only ever put in her like princess version of clothes. She's not treated to be as like a tomboy, even if she is going to be that archetype. She's not treated that way. She's just, she's just another one of the girls. They have no personality besides the personality that we give them. What makes the princesses dynamic is their story, not them. It's not really them. And it's kind of disappointing, yes, but at the same time, it shows what a good story that these things are. They can make these characters seem so lovable, even if they don't really have that much of a personality. It's kind of strange to me how like so many people are so afraid of having, lesbian or asexual Disney princesses or Disney princes, because I think that's where we need to go with Disney. Disney has to, as a company, be progressive. They have a responsibility to do that in just the sense that they are so popular. There's no reason for them not to do it. You know what I mean? And it's sad that The Princess and the Frog did so poorly because they went back to basics with Rapunzel. I mean, not to dash Tangled, because I enjoy Tangled. I definitely do. It's a fun movie. It's very cute. But you can't watch it and not think of like 17 other Disney movies that this movie is. I mean, it's basically like every other Disney movie before it, just kind of thrown together with like little tweaks. That's all it really is. It's nothing unique in and of itself. And it goes back to the same basic, I look at the window, I think of what is out there, and I just want it, even though I don't know what it is, but then I meet the guy, and I'm like, oh, he's it. That's what I wanted. Not anything else, but that guy. And, you had Tiana, who was progressive, but she was so annoying because she kept talking about it because they didn't write her properly. And so they went back to, we're just going to do that kind of wide-eyed, I can insert my personality in here thing. And I think what's really telling about it is, like, I was reading some people who were, like, talking about Ariel and who were defending her, saying, just because I have everything does that mean I shouldn't dream? It's not about you. It's not saying that because I don't like Ariel, I'm attacking you. And because I say Ariel's dreams were kind of finicky, I'm saying that your dreams are wrong. It's not you. It's the character. You are not Ariel. You're not Belle. You're not Mulan. You're not any of them. They are their own entity, and they have their own problems. And analyzing them and discussing them does not make it invalid. Not every movie can be feminist and progressive, even though they should work to becoming that. And it doesn't mean it makes it inherently a bad movie. I mean, I love so many movies that are definitely not, diverse or very progressive, but they are good in and of themselves. I mean, I like Lovecraft, racist. I like, high fantasy, mostly white people. Women always getting raped and having to have babies. That's really, it's a part of a genre, it's part of a history. Should it change? Yes. Do I discuss it and talk about what the flaws in it are? Yes. Because I'm educated and I have the right to talk about things in a logical way. I'm not just saying, it's bad, don't do it. You can look at something and see what's wrong with it and still enjoy it. That's the thing about being an adult. You can think for yourself. And this isn't to bash people who like Disney. And I love Disney. I will probably support them until the day I die because I love their movies. I love Beauty and the Beast. I love Belle. Do you think I want to talk about how she probably reads Twilight and Jack and the Beanstalk? No, but that's what she does. Most likely, if she was real. I don't care for Ariel because I feel like her character is completely just like every other, oh my god, Dad, why don't you let me do what I want? It's like, no. She's like that Cartman character, which is like, screw you, Dad, I do what I want. That to me is Ariel. And the thing about it is that Ariel is such a relatable character because that period in your life is Ariel. I related to Ariel up until the point I became older. I'm just like, you know what, 9 out of 10, my dad was right about shit like that. And just the arguments against Ariel and defending her are so kind of just she's my favorite, so I want to defend her and her dreams and whatever, and her dad was mean to her. If you're a parent and your daughter constantly disobeys you, are you supposed to be like, oh, well, that sucks? No, I'm not saying he should have blown up all her shit, but what really are you trying to say? That she's right just because you like her? Because she's your favorite character, that makes her okay? I mean, when I had a Stockholm Syndrome against Beast and Belle, do I necessarily agree with them? No, but at the same time I'm just like, you know what? That's a valid argument. It is kind of weird that she spent an entire, like, maybe a couple months with him and now she loves him. Like, he changed to be with her. Not because he wanted to be a better person for himself. He changed to be with Belle. Even though she might not have been like, you need to change to be with me. He realized that. He's like, I want to get ass. Nice equals ass. Getting it. Very simple. But, yeah, I just make this video because I want people to be able to look at things that they enjoy and think about them. Especially Disney. Disney is so part of so many people's childhood and reality that it's just like, people are so harsh to just be like, oh, it has to be a certain way, it's for the children, you know, but everyone enjoys Disney movies. Adults, teenagers, older people. I mean, Disney spans generations. Our grandparents grew up with Disney. This isn't just like for children, it's for everyone, and everyone should be able to see a movie and be like, this is good. I mean, I've heard people talk about Ferngully being an environmental movie. I did not realize that until I was older. I wasn't looking at Ferngully and thinking, oh my god, the environment, I have to save the trees. No. I didn't think that. But now as an adult, I look at it and I'm like, you know what, it does have messages about the environment in it. I should be like more observant of what's being told in my movies because it's important. Because you think that these things don't matter. But just talking about my own personal experience, probably you'll think of me, oh, you were such an idiot, Melanie, how did you not know this? But in my mind, for most of my life, I had the image of having a Disney relationship in my mind. My idea is I'm going to be the guy, we're going to fall in love, we're going to have kids, it's going to be awesome. I wanted that when I was told, because when I looked at Disney movies, I'm like, yes, I want just to be like Belle and Ariel. I want to be like Ariel, I want to have a little man, and you know what, for even a part of me still, even though I'm not that same person, when I think of what true love is, I think of Disney. I think of Disney as true love. And if that's what I'm going to think about when I think of true love, they have to show different kinds of love. They have to show homosexual love. They have to show people who like are happy and just being single. The whole old maid shit is done. And I feel like people who are against those things are really just hitting themselves with a foot. I mean, those can be great stories in and of themselves. And, you know, as a young person and as someone who had the romantic ideals in my head, I wish I had varied images of what true love was. Because when you watch a movie, a romantic movie that's supposed to be like, oh, it's so sweet, at the end everything is perfect, and you go through life thinking, why isn't my life like this? And people's like, oh, it's silly, you should just know it's not like that. But still, it's in your subconscious. That's why it's called your subconscious. You know, those things do influence you. Whether it's small or big, the fact that we feel so passionate about these things proves that it has influenced us in some way or another. And if it has such a powerful influence, it should be diverse. It shouldn't just be this one type of character in every single movie with slight variations. I mean, yes, Mulan is probably the most... Mulan, Tiana, and Pocahontas. With Jasmine a little bit, because Jasmine goes in and out. With kind of like... She has the same kind of like I dream kind of way of I want to see the world. But her character was so better fleshed out in the TV series. I don't even know. Like, the TV series made Jasmine boss. But talking about just the movies themselves, only Mulan and Tiana really have tangible goals. Only ones who really have something that they're striving for bigger than themselves, especially Mulan. But even so, later on, she just becomes another one of the girls. She even though, you know, her and Shane could have just dated for a while. No, had to have a movie when they get married, just to settle it down. Pocahontas had to have a movie when she gets married. Tiana had to get married. Nothing wrong with marriage, but can we get somebody who just be like, I'm single, and I'm loving it, and I'm cool, and I don't got no cats. Whatever, hate on me. But that's not gonna happen if no one does it. Someone has to do it, and be brave enough to do it. We can't just have Pixar doing everything, guys. I mean, come on. But, yeah. I'm starting to blabble, so I'm gonna try and, like, slow it down. But, basically, if you love Disney, just sit down, watch the movie, and think about it. It won't destroy your childhood. Because if you really like the movie and it means that much to you, thinking about it on an intellectual level should not ruin it for you. If anything, thinking about it intellectually should make it better. Because that's what it should do. You should love a movie and look at it and think, this is amazing. No matter what. I mean, I watched Beauty and the Beast, I'm going to watch it later. I'm still going to love it. Because even though I know the flaws, I still see the good in it. Like The Little Mermaid, I hate Ariel. Still think the music is awesome. The animation is great. If she hadn't been annoying in that movie, I probably would still love it. It's still a great movie in its own right. I just don't like the main character. And that could be said for a whole bunch of other movies. You know? quality does not always have to mean it's going to be the best thing in the world. But at the same time, you can't get mad at feminists and, people who want equality in race and, LGBT rights. Be like, oh, why try to ruin my childhood? Why don't you want me to just be happy with my little Disney princesses? Because your little bubble isn't reality. And if this little bubble is going to be used to show children what love and relationships and what beauty is, it can't just be that bubble. It cannot. It just cannot function that way.
I want adventure in the great white somewhere.